Good afternoon. We are here for the CARES Act Steering Committee meeting. I appreciate everyone joining us. Here in the room, we have Secretary Larry Walther and Bill Gossage and Secretary Gillespie, and then we have individuals here from their offices. And J.R. Hankins has joined us. We have on the line, I cannot see everyone because the Zoom screen is kind of small. So if y'all don't mind, and I'm looking right over your head, so don't feel like I'm staring through you.
You got an equal face or
I'm staring right through you. So let me go ahead and take roll, and if you guys don't mind, just open your mic. Some of you are, I don't have a picture, so you'll probably just open your mic and speak. So Secretary Fetcher.
I think she's on her way walking over.
Okay, good. So she's coming over. Great. And I see Secretary Preston. And then you're here for Secretary Cook and Cindy Gillespie. Dr. Bledsoe has.
I'm here. I'm on audio.
On phone. Great. Good to hear you. And Secretary Key, Johnny Key, or someone from Education. Yes. Hi. Tina's here. Thank you. And Senator Irvin. I think she was planning on joining by phone. We'll watch for her. Representative Jean.
I'm here.
Thank you. Good to hear you. Representative Allen. Is that you? Okay, we'll listen for you. Well, first, Representative Allen. Senator Wallace, are you here on?
Yeah, there's one of those, Lindsay Wallace.
She's with corrections.
Okay, we'll wait for
Senator Wallace.
Senator Wallace. And I see Senator Elliott. Hi, glad you could join us.
Hello.
Oh, where did you go? Oh, there you are. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Y'all are in, you're all in little squares on Zoom, and so the squares move periodically, so sometimes I don't know where. Good to see you. We're glad you're here. And I see Secretary Key is on the line as well. Okay, Representative Michelle Gray.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Oh, hi, there you are. Glad you're here. And Mr. Gossage and Jeremy May is taking good care of us. Okay. Secretary Fetcher, I think she's coming in person. So we have a great group. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I have circulated the minutes from our last meeting of October 28th via our invitation link. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes? Does anyone
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Jean and Senator Elliott. Motion to approve. All those in favor, please say aye to approve the minutes.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, great. Our minutes are approved. First, we will go to Secretary Larry Walther for a report on our remaining funding balance.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Smith. I think at the last meeting, we actually dispersed the entire amount of money that we had from the CARES commitment. So what I now like to do is report money that is actually coming back to the CARES that either could not be spent or that was spent and then was recovered through FEMA. The first item does everyone have this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there are new documents that were just posted to the meeting invitation. We received an updated document from DFNA just minutes before the meeting, so you should hopefully have that.
The document that I'm looking at right now, it says CARES Act meeting December the 2nd, 2021, and it says the first line on it says reimbursement funds received from FEMA. And if you don't have that, what I'd like,
here's what they have. Yeah, you can read
it,
but it's similar.
It's similar to the agenda. The first number was $61,033,369. That money was money that DFA had spent and had recovered through CARES that could be recovered through FEMA. We applied to FEMA. They accepted our application and then returned $61 million to us. Into the CARES holding account. So we have that money that we can redistribute or pay for items that have already been incurred, and we'll talk about that at a later time in the agenda. Secretary Smith has been working with each of the agencies, and today we can report that the Department of Commerce is returning $1,896,251. That's not the right number, is it?
They just sent an update this afternoon.
Okay.
Secretary Smith may have
Yes,
that number.
it is 382,000
More.
that they are returning. So it gives us a full 2 million.
Okay.
Wait a minute, no, sorry. Let me give you the
The
document.
final request is 382,000, so the return is a little over 2 million, 70,251.72 cents.
You said that too fast,
Yes.
Secretary Preston.
The current, all right, I'll slow down a little bit. The current
Please.
funding is
I'm from the Delta, man. Slow down.
$2,452,251.72. Of that, we're
Okay.
utilizing 382,000. That means the funds being returned, $2,070,251.72.
Thank you. So
All right.
from Commerce, we have an additional $2,070,251.72. From the Department of Corrections, we have $206,171. From the Department of Health, Mobile Health Unit, we have $67,000. And I don't know what that total is. Hi, Secretary Fetcher. It's nice to see you. I think Mr. McVeigh is adding them up for me.
Should be $2,243,427 or $22.72.
Okay. Available funds was how much? 62 or 63? McVeigh?
It'd be 61.
I was
Well,
told.
we had a last minute change. I apologize. It's good because it's more money, not less money, the adjustment. But I need to know what the total available funds is.
Sir, I believe that number is 63,376,791.
Is that including from Commerce, from Corrections, and from Health?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Okay, so we have available funds for redistribution of $63,376,791, I believe is what Mr. Lothian said. The requests that we're going to be addressing today add up to $57,192,921. So we're going to have approximately $6.2 million that we could also distribute by the end of the year. One thing we need to remember is that the CARES Fund ceases or stops on the 31st of December of this year. So we have to have all money dispersed by that time, or it reverts back to the federal government. And so our objective is to try to come up with, to support certain reimbursements. And then at the end, as we either get more money, as we get possibly more money that can't be spent by some of the agencies that they think they can today, then we would have a secondary objective of funding other projects as we get to the end of 2021. Okay, so right now we have $63,376,000 that we have to redistribute. That concludes
Question,
my.
please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so how, the money that we need to spend, the 6 point whatever million, we need to spend by the end of the year, are there already projects in the hopper for those funds, or do people need to know these are funds that they can apply for?
There are, we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the funding that we want to support on item number 4 of the agenda. So we'll go through each of those specifically. The preponderance of those will be dollars that were spent previously that are
Reimbursed?
that can be reimbursed by CARES, and so we will use that to reimburse the agencies that money that has already been spent.
Okay.
There are a few things, there are a few things that are to be spent as we go forward, and we'll address those in a minute.
Okay, that'll be fine. Thank
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions related to Secretary Walters' report? Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is related to the Department of Commerce. Initially had received an allocation for funding to the National Guard assistance for unemployment, and they are requesting to reallocate that. Secretary Preston, do you want to speak? Would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I think you covered it well. We were set aside funds for UI admin and the purpose of the Guard coming into support. We then were able to utilize a staffing agency to help get us through some of those most critical months. What was left in that balance that was allocated to DWS was through a number in front of you, $314,833. And our request will be to simply reallocate that to the deficit we currently have in our UI administration. And that would be an allowable expense.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this request?
Where are you?
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Secretary Gillespie, thank you. Motion to approve. Second from Secretary Fetcher, who's joined us here in the room. Thank you. Any discussion regarding the motion? Okay, are y'all ready for a vote?
Yes.
Those in favor of the reallocation of the $314,833 from National Guard assistance to UI administration, please say yes. Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Secretary Preston, your motion has passed, or your request has passed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to something that Secretary Walter was speaking about just a minute ago. Item number four is requests for funding. And you should have received on our meeting invitation, I listed all of the documents related to these requests. Look over that and make sure if there were some that we were missing. No, I'm pretty sure every one of these had a document attached to those. So hopefully you all have had the opportunity to review those. If anyone has any questions or needs me to send the documents real quick before we start discussing them, let me know and I can forward them to you. But I think we'd just like to start and let Secretary Walther start from the top and explain these, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, what I'd like to do is ask Paul Lothian, who's been working with each of these organizations, to explain the request and answer any questions. And we have people from the agencies or from the organizations who can also answer questions if necessary. So Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. First item on the agenda is Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance that provides food to children and family and the elderly. They provided us documentation that supported a number of meals per dollar amount spent. And it's very, well, the meals that they offer are nutritious, obviously, but they're not extravagant by any stretch of the imagination. And they believe they could get 26 truckloads of food for $1 million. Obviously, we have families out there that go hungry every day, and we'd like to recommend passage of this request.
And we do have Kathy Webb here on the line to answer any questions if anyone has questions. We appreciate her request and the support that she gives to families of Arkansas. Is there, yes, Secretary Gillespie, go ahead.
I'm very, very supportive of this, just as I asked this question. Kathy, I'm assuming that like what y'all did before, if it turns out some of this is not available, you will be able to substitute something else, because I know there are supply chain issues out there, to spend all this out before the end of this year.
Yes, thank you, Secretary Gillespie. And we checked when we sent the application in, and then we checked again yesterday to make sure we could get the food that we said we could get. And our food solicitor told me as long as we had 2 days, we could spend whatever dollar amount we were able to receive. And the food banks, and therefore the food pantries, and therefore the people in need would be incredibly grateful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Do we want to take these individually as motions, or do we want to package the whole group and just go through and ask questions now and then deal with the motion later? Preference of the group? Okay.
Say package.
That's what we'll do. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead to the next item is for, these are actually 3 that are similar. So do you want to speak to those, Secretary Walter, or would you like Paul?
Paul's going to take all of them.
Okay, great. Mr. Lothian?
So we have 3 entities here that all service people in the communities for substance abuse. Some of them are more pointed toward minorities and impoverished areas. They operate in North Little Rock, or they're headquartered, I think, in North Little Rock, Russellville, and Fort Smith. They all have seen increases in their workloads during the pandemic. A lot of them deal with substance abuse. They also have some other issues that they deal with. They provide meals in places. But at the end of the day, we ask them to provide us a list of items that they would be able to use by year end. We did that back in November, thinking that we would have our reimbursement back and be able to process these applications in the month of November. It's obviously slipped to December now. And so although you have some paperwork that talks about what they would spend the money on, I believe we're going to wind up having to cover some of this through a reimbursement of payroll expenditures that have been made from their employees that work directly with the public and therefore was dealing with the pandemic and the opportunity to work to reduce the outbreak of the COVID-19 and mitigate some of those situations. So we're going to kind of change the request a little bit so that the funding sources can be solidified and the money given to them, and because it will be reimbursement of PPE items that they've already spent, that was on this list, and payroll costs they've already incurred, they'll be able to take these dollar amounts of money and do the projects that they've listed, but they'll be able to actually affect those after January the 1st, because we've narrowed the timeline down to them to the point that they won't get the money until after the ALC meeting on December the 17th. And it would not give them the opportunity to do some of the purchasing and stuff that they had identified back in November, if that makes sense.
It does.
One thing, I'll just make sure, Mr. Lothian, you mentioned some projects that would be after the first of the year. The dollars that the CARES Act fund, that the dollars that are being requested from the CARES Act fund would not have anything to do with the expenses in January. We'll be just reimbursing or providing funding towards anything that would happen prior to the end of the year. I just want to verify that, Mr. Lothian, is that right?
Yes, well, when we make a reimbursement to someone that has already spent the money for eligible costs under the CARES funding, then once they get that money back, they can use that funding after January to do their work that they normally do. And so that's what we're doing here, is shifting that back to items that have been previously paid for.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that. Are there any questions related to these 3 similar requests. There are representatives from each of these entities that are on the line that can assist in answering questions, as well as Mr. Lothian for DFNA. If anybody has a question, raise your hand or speak up. Okay, I don't see any questions, so let's move on to the next item. Is related to the library. Mr. Lothian?
The state libraries, we've worked with them extensively to determine, again, what they would be able to spend by the end of the year, both for PPE and then some air cleaning and purification systems. They had asked for 9.6 million. We have allocated 4.8 million, and we'll be working with them again in the same manner to make sure that we're either reimbursing them for a cost already spent or for something that can be purchased and on hand by the end of the year, and or premium pay for the people that have worked directly with the public during this time period of the CARES funding, which runs from March of 2020 through December this year. So because we were a month and a half or a month late in doing this, we'll have to work with them in the same manner with the libraries throughout the state to distribute this funding.
Thank you. Are there any questions related to the request for the library? And I believe that Mr. Kuhn is available if we need. No questions for that? Okay, thank you. The next item is related to the Department of Correction. Mr. Lothian, do you want to speak to that, or do we?
Madam Secretary.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
How many libraries does this affect?
Paul, can you speak to that?
Is Jennifer Chilcott on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
How many libraries are we talking about, please?
We had, it's a little bit difficult. Some of the libraries are library systems, and then others are individual libraries. As far as library systems ranging in different sizes, that was about 75 different libraries. But that's probably going to be, I apologize for not having an exact number, but it's probably going to be somewhere around 160 different library buildings that are affected.
So this is Representative Jean. So this will cover all the city and county libraries.
All of the, yes, thank you. It will cover all of the libraries that applied. We had about 5 counties that did not apply for any of these funds. And I don't know exactly why that was, that they didn't reach out. We certainly made it clear. Part of it may have simply been that the funds weren't guaranteed, and it was, a little bit difficult to get pricing and that kind of thing together on the time frame that we needed it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions related to the library request?
Well, look, this is Joyce. If we could get the names of the counties that did not apply, because I'm just curious about who they are. I don't have to know right now, but I'd just like to know who's not applying and what the issues might be.
Senator, I think the list is in the attachment that was sent out before the meeting.
I didn't see that. Okay, all right.
There's a PDF in the meeting notice.
Okay.
I can go through very quickly if you'd like, Senator Elliott.
No, you don't have to, because I can go back to that attachment. I didn't see that.
Okay.
We don't need to use that time for that. I'll find it. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions related to the libraries? And then we'll go on to. Okay, we'll move on to the request from Department of Corrections. Secretary Graves is on the line, and DFNA also can speak to this request. So.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The department is requesting reimbursement of $7.5 million for overtime expenses incurred during the COVID pandemic. since the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, we have expended approximately $11.7 million in overtime, with a current vacancy of 1,300 COs across the Division of Correction. And I realize your agenda's fairly stout today, so with those highlights, I'll be happy to take any questions from the steering committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I don't believe we have any questions. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to, and thank you for the return of the 206,000. Let's move on to Secretary Gillespie. We have from the Department of Human Services a request for unreimbursed COVID costs for assisted living facilities. And there is an attachment. We've got some background. Okay, I think we muted them. We do have a document related to this request in the meeting notes. So Secretary Gillespie?
Sure.
Go ahead. And I think you have a mic there.
I think we have a mic. Okay. Yes, we're asking for $6.3 million, a little over $6.3 million, that we could use to reimburse assisted living facilities in the state for some of their unreimbursed costs this past year. We want to set this up as we've done similar with hospitals, nursing homes, and other groups where we basically do an allocation that they can draw from us this month that is on a per occupied bed. We've worked with them to come up with January of 2021 as the census date, where we would essentially provide an amount of money, in this case $7,700 per occupied bed, to help offset some of the costs that they've all experienced over the course of the last 18 months. And I won't spend a lot of time on this since everybody, I think, is quite aware of the costs. Secretary Graves just said of continuing staffing and supplies and everything else during the pandemic. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Secretary Gillespie. Does anybody have any questions?
Ms. Michelle.
Go ahead, Representative Gray.
Thank you. Secretary Gillespie, you said per occupied bed with the census as of, I think you said January of 2021. Are there any facilities that have closed since that time? And if so, will they still be receiving any funding?
If a facility is closed, it would not receive funding.
Okay. And what about too, like on I think I'd read your what you sent in, what we received through email, and you were talking about like additional payroll expenses. Are you going to make sure that like those payroll expenses are above and beyond the normal payroll expenses, or are you just going to let any payroll expenses?
At this stage, what we're planning to do, recognizing, since we're just doing it at $7,700 per bed, their payroll expenses that they've incurred go back from March 13th of 2020 through the end of 21. So we're just doing $7,700 per bed, period. That covers the entire 18-month period.
Okay, so we're not going to make them justify their expenses like we did the other healthcare facilities that have received money?
They were part of that grouping around PPE. This is just a recognition that there are a lot of extraordinary costs that everyone has incurred over the months. And we did not, when we did this with nursing homes and hospitals, we did not do it with the assisted living. So that's why we're doing this with the assisted living facilities.
Okay. Did we not, though, make the other facilities justify?
We did an allocation. No, we did. They have an allocation also. We did it in a very similar way with an allocation, an allotment that was drawn down on a per bed basis.
Okay. Okay.
Mark White may have something to add.
I'll say, just clarify, is for licensed bed that is occupied by a Medicaid resident in that month.
Yes.
Just to be clear, we're only talking about Medicaid beds.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to the next item is from the Department of Commerce, Division of Workforce Services. for Unemployment Insurance System Administration and a request to restore the UI trust fund balance. So Secretary Preston and I think Dr. Childress is on it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
thank you, Secretary Smith. I think Dr. Childers and Courtney Trailer are on if we get any questions here. But just real quick on the UI admin, we were notified in June of this year that the federal government, Department of Labor, would only be reimbursing UI admin at a 75% level. So we knew it was important not to slow down in processing claims and handling all the UI functions that we needed. So therefore, we are running into a significant shortage when it comes to our UI admin. So we could put these funds to work quickly to cover that gap that we had. I know during the pandemic and the height of it, we were under a lot of pressure and stress to get all the funds out as quickly as we could, which included adding more staffing power, keeping offices open longer, overtime, all those things associated with it. So rent, all those personnel, utilities, postage, getting all the notifications out through the mail, all those things are included in there. So this $21 million would cover, go towards covering that shortfall that we encountered during that time. And then the second piece of that is related to the UI Trust Fund. This is an item that we've discussed many times with this committee. We are still short from where we were pre-pandemic balance, and this is one of the allowable expenses. So this would allow us to not have to foot that cost onto businesses and the tax that they pay on their employees to bring the trust fund back up to the pre-level days. So the request would be for $8 million for that and $21 million for the UI admin. And again, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you, Secretary Preston. No questions. The last item on our agenda related to the request for funding is from the Department of Health. And we have a small note in our files related to laboratory supplies and testing and case investigation and contact tracing. I believe that Deputy Director Casey Cochran is on to speak to the, yes.
Yes, thank you. So we have requested funds for the laboratory component for a multiplex sequencing test. These can be on the ground by December 31st. So this would allow us to order some additional supplies for that testing. Also, the other part to that is the request for funds to support case investigation and contact tracing. We have funds currently that will carry us to February 1. And so this would allow us to push further past that date to have funding available to support those activities through this funding.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions related to this request from the Department of Health? Okay. Very
Madam
good.
Chairman, I would make a motion that we accept all of the items under number 4, request for funding that sum up, I believe, to $57,152,921.
Thank you. Secretary Walter, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Secretary Fetcher. We have a second on the motion. Is there any discussion related to the motion to approve the item request for funding and item 4 on our agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor to approve the request for funding, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Matt, I'd like to make one comment about that. We're
Very good.
also doing an investigation to determine whether there are any appropriations would be required by any of the agencies that are handling these dollars. We don't know if there are any at this point in time, but we'll have those available. We'll have those, I think, done by tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so they can be presented to ALC at the appropriate time when they meet in 2 weeks.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, I believe that the FNA has been in contact with each of these entities in the event that we did receive the approval for funding.
Now, do you want me to recognize myself, or you want to recognize me for the next thing?
think you're recognized.
Okay,
Secretary
thank
Walter,
you.
yes, you can go ahead with the
All
next
right.
item. Let me make sure everybody knows what we're looking at now. What we have done, right before the meeting, I attached an additional file, and it's called, CARES Request Narrative Final Update, and it'll be the last document in our meeting invitation. And so it has some of the items we've just discussed, but the additional information that Secretary Walter is going to go over with you now. So maybe that gives you guys a chance to pull that up.
So
Go ahead.
to kind of start out this discussion, what I'd like to say is we were provided from the federal government through the CARES Act $1.25 billion to use for dealing with the pandemic in Arkansas. And that's what we've been doing over the last, I guess, 18 to 20 months. I don't know exactly. I guess it started in March of calendar year 20. What we are finding, we're at the end of the time frame for the distribution of the money. We're getting down to a final few dollars. And what we want to do is present a plan. What I'm going to propose is a plan that will allow us to make utilization of all of the $1.25 billion, not knowing exactly where we're going to end up on December the 31st of this year. So the idea, what I'm going to suggest is an order in which we would provide reimbursement, and then the final one would be a reimbursement, or final two would be a reimbursement if funds are available. What I suspect is there will probably be some additional money coming in to this committee for redistribution, because at the end of the year, they may not be able to spend all of the money that they have been provided, they being the agencies. And if that's the case, then we have some expenses that have been occurred throughout this pandemic that we can recover through reimbursements. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend is $3 million that would be provided to DFA disbursement for pre-approved items. And that's a specific thing for the Department of Corrections. They have provided air handling, ionization equipment to handle the air within the facilities. They've spent $3 million, and they have asked that we reimburse them for that money. So that would, the first item that I would recommend would be $3 million to DFA disbursement for that recovery. I can answer any questions, and I think Secretary Graves is on the line too, who could also answer any specific questions to that with regard to corrections. Okay, hearing none, the next item, we had a request from the Supreme Court for reimbursement for juvenile officers, public safety employees whose jobs involved interacting with the general public and responding to the needs of the general public. It's $1,554,736 that I would recommend that we provide to the Supreme Court through the juvenile officers area to provide recovery of a portion of those expenses that they had throughout the last few months. Any questions on that one? All right, the third item would be a request from the Department of Transformation and Shared Services for reimbursement of vaccine incentives, $3,953,800. That total, when you add that in, that total will exceed the $6 million, $6.2 million that we have determined at this point in time will remain after the projects that we approved just a few minutes ago. Mm. So we would spend up to the amount of money we have available on the reimbursement for vaccines. If we were to receive additional funds over the next 30 days, that would allow us to recover all of that, then we would do it. If we we receive money to recover more than that, then I would recommend that any of the additional funds be allocated to, also to the Department of Transformation and Shared Services for reimbursement of director authorized leave. The total of that amount is $15,165,619. I don't expect we'll have anywhere close to that, but that would be where the remainder of the any remainder would be allocated to that project. So that was, I would like to make a motion that we approve those expenditures if money is available this month.
In that order,
In that order.
that they would be.
I hope I've explained that where it makes some sense.
I think so. One thing that I would note is the request, that it says it's a request from Transformation and Shared Services and the Department of Transportation. And the Transformation and Shared Services, both for the
Thank you.
reimbursed vaccine incentive. Go ahead.
I apologize. I actually have a note where the $3,953,000 does not include the highway department. So I'd like to revise number 3 to $4,385,400, and that would include all of the agencies of the state, including the highway department and the Game and Fish Commission, which are independent agencies.
Okay, so let's have that number again.
$4,385,400.
Okay, and so the funding, if this funding, it would go back to offset the cost that each of the departments spent related to the vaccine incentive program.
Exactly.
Yes, it would go back to the department that had expended it. We're just making the request.
That's right.
TSS is requested it, and so that's why we're.
Good.
So would it go back to you and then to them, or would we send, I don't know.
Direct reimbursement.
I believe so.
Okay, all right, then we'll send it directly to them. Okay, thank you.
Right, and the same for the director's authorized leave request.
So I make that revised what I'd like to do is make the motion, with number 3 being $4,385,400 instead of the other one. So that's a motion that I make.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Secretary Gillespie, thank you. Thank you also, Secretary Preston. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, so we understand the motion is to approve these last 4 items that are requested, and they would be paid or funded in the order listed as requested. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Very good. Congratulations.
That's all I have, and I thank you too.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen of the CARES Act Steering Committee, I want to thank you for your hard work to distribute $1.25 billion and then distribute a lot of that again. We've worked. So at some point, we'll figure out exactly how many dollars we've distributed, because as you know, we've gotten at least 62 million back, and a lot of others. And we appreciate all of the departments who have worked with state agencies, who have worked with individuals in the community with need. We appreciate those of you who have come to us. Many of you are on the line today to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And we appreciate all the hard work that you've done. I believe we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Chairman.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, for your leadership.
Thank you.
You did a lot of work.